5, 4, 3.
Hi folks, thank you for being here. My name's Brian Kurtz. I'm with Healed by Spirit, and we're going to be talking about a lot of stuff tonight, but the theme through everything we're going to talk about tonight is going to be the malleability of 3D. 3D is what we all just sort of generally experience, but what we're going to talk about tonight is that that's not all there is, basically. For millennia, people have known on some level that there was more than what we could sense with our basic five senses. People talk about a sixth sense. We talk about a knowing, a deep inner knowing. In Judeo-Christian Western type culture, we talk in terms of like Old Testament, New Testament. There are cultures that go back thousands of years, 10,000 years, more. And as people get more tuned in to what is under everything, sourcing everything, people are getting more and more tuned into what's available from, I'll call it the other side, but it's not really another side. It's all the same one thing that we have access to. In the healing work I do, I clear out energy centers, chakras, I open them up, I take things out, I put stuff in, I call from within the person I'm working on the energy that they have in them to fill the gap I've created. It's a series of visualizations that I'm doing. The fun part is that through the visualization, things change. Cancers have gone away, kidneys have started up again, migraine headaches disappear. A decade of arthritis is gone in an hour and doesn't come back. You know, this is the kind of stuff that traditional Western medicine would not necessarily say is even possible, and yet there are thousands of years of work that's been done in this sort of area that directly confirms that it's in fact possible. So the work that I do is deeply spiritual work, and it's something that anyone can do. That's part of what I want everyone to know here too, is the work I do is available to everyone. It's not some radical, special gift from God that I've received. Is it a gift from God? Yes. But it's not some radical just for me gift. It's a gift that everyone has in them, because we're all made of that God stuff. Physics is now showing that we are particles of energy that are mostly space. I'll try and describe it, but it's going to sound exaggerated, but it's probably not even exaggerated enough to give you an idea. Everyone's seen the little atomic particles, you know, the little picture of an atom with the nucleus with the little atomic particles and the electron shells and the little orbiting electrons in various levels and shells around the nuclear core, the atomic core. If you were to draw that out to scale, say here in this room, the nuclear particles in the center would be like little specks of dust. The first electron shell would be across the street from where we are. The second electron shell, we're in Austin here. The second electron shell might be Dallas. The third electron shell might be North Dakota. The fourth electron shell might be the moon. The fifth electron shell might be Mars. That's how much space we are. A guy named Greg Braden, who I'm a big fan of, he used to be a geophysicist with NASA and Phillips Petroleum. He's been on the speaking circuit for years now, but he's a hard scientist. One of the things that he talks about in a video called The Language of the Divine Matrix, you can look it up on YouTube as, I think it's called The Language of the Divine Matrix, Parts 1 and 2. You can actually look it up that way and find it. Braden talks about the entire universe, if you took all of the space away, would shrink down into something the size of a basketball. I've heard some people say a golf ball, but you get the idea. We're talking not the planet, not the solar system, not our portion of the galaxy, not the galaxy, not the billions of galaxies, but the universe that's been expanding for billions of years, take all of that space out of everything, and the whole universe would be this big. That's how much mostly space we are. I mean, we're so much mostly space, how could we even perceive each other's existence? That's the weird thing. There's no difference between the stuff that makes up you and the air between us and the stuff that makes up me. We're all really just one thing. It's relative densities of atoms and molecules. And the weird thing is, like, this chair is hard, but it's really moving at the speed of light. And if we know anything about anything scientific, you can look it up, Google it up, Wikipedia, whatever. This is actually moving at the speed of light. That's how much of an illusion we are. Our very existence is an illusion. Then we talk about the space in between everything that holds everything together. For me, I use the word God. Some people get weirded out over the word God because it's one of those things that can't possibly begin to describe what it is we're trying to talk about. I mean, God is, if I look at God as the creator of everything, we are an expression of that. Our very existence, the day-to-day of our existence, is an expression of that which created us. God is the space, the energy that keeps things in place. If our atoms are in place and the stuff that makes up me and you and you and you are in place, if you will, what's holding that together? I'll call it God. God is the energy that gives everything its being. I forget if it's New Testament or Old Testament, but somewhere in there, I think it's New Testament, it says, in him we have our being. That's literal. In God, creator, energy that holds everything in place, we literally have our being. That which is me, that is me, that is the me, that is me, my soul. And this 3D expression of my soul is an expression of that which created me, in me, as me. There's a Benedictine monk named Richard Rohr, who I just love the guy. Rohr talks about when we are most vulnerable and transparent, that's when Spirit, God, Creator, is able to use us. When we surrender to that, when we go with the flow of that, Eastern culture might talk about being a leaf on the water. If we're a leaf on the water, then it doesn't matter if it's a nice smooth river or if it's getting all rapids and rocks and everything. If you're floating on that, you come into rapids, you come up against a rock. If you try and fight that, you're going to get bashed up against the rock. But if you're just with the water, you're just going to go through it. It just, no matter what, the turmoil of life or whatever, if we can just surrender and be with it, it doesn't really matter what the circumstances are. We're sort of above it all. New Testament talks about that peace that passes understanding. It's the stuff that you just know, and you just know, and you just know that you know, and it's fine. And even when it's not fine, like our circumstances aren't as we would prefer, when in that flow, when in that moment, when one with that energy that allows us to be our being, the stuff of the day is just the stuff of the day, and life is a lot easier. So what I'm all about with the healing work I do is getting people in touch with the source of their healing. That's source with a capital S, if you will, that God that is in us. And I'm shown as I open up an energy center, for example. Say I open up heart chakra for someone. I'll go through all 7 energy centers. I open up heart chakra, and I'm able to see, over time, over the 30 plus years I've been doing this, I'm able to see a sort of a graphic that shows me what I need to know. Anyone can do this. When you work with Spirit, Spirit will show you the graphic that's for you to learn. I teach this in the class I teach. I can do a weekend intensive class where I will literally take people from ground zero to being able to discern and clear that which is in someone, and what looks like miraculous things happen. Braden talks about the difference between a miracle and technology is an explanation. It's really pretty simple. What I do when arthritis of 10 years disappears in an hour and doesn't come back looks like a miracle, there's actually an explanation, and I teach that in the classes I teach. But what it comes down to is the power of our thoughts, the intention that we bring that goes beyond the thoughts our brain thinks, have access to a power that is tied to the infinite, that is us. We're not a part of it, we are it. We're an expression of it. So the energy that is me, the Brian that is Brian, my soul, if you will, is tied to that. And it's so tied to that that I don't have to go somewhere to be there. I'm already there. New Testament, Jesus talked about the kingdom of heaven lying within. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of Eastern cultures that talk about going in and knowing yourself and coming to be one with all that is. There's, throughout the millennia, there have been cultures that all basically say that same thing. It's about accessing that which is most you, with your other stuff gone. So what we're talking about here is accessing that. In the healing work that I do, I give people a chance to relieve themselves of the accumulated stuff of their life that energetically resides in them. We all have life experiences. Stuff happens. You've seen the bumper stickers that say, sort of, stuff happens, okay? When stuff happens, how we process the experience will either leave us clear or with some residual stuff of that. And over time, if we've become too much of a filter and grabbing too much of the stuff of our lives, that stuff builds up and it results in a dis-ease, literally, and we get sick, we get ill. And it's amazing the stuff I've seen with people over the 30 years I've been doing my healing work, where people who have been shaken off the foundation of their foundational walk that is their walk to walk in their life. They'll have something that happens. Maybe someone had a kid before they really wanted to, or maybe they married the wrong person, or maybe they took the job that they didn't want to take, but it looked like the right job, and all the stuff of life that just happens. If that knocks someone off of their foundational walk that is their walk, it's amazing how they'll have knee trouble, or foot trouble, ankle problems, ingrown toenails, whatever. It's represented in that foundational walk of their walk. We talk about heart chakra, people who have their hearts broken and they never really get over it, or they never process that life experience. There's a congestion that literally starts to happen in some cases. People have heart trouble, lo and behold, right? It's really amazing how it's symbolic. In your gut, our gut processes our food. That chakra that resides in that area produces it processes our life experience. If we don't process through our life experience, lo and behold, maybe we've got ulcers, diverticulitis, some sort of digestive issues. You can just look at the amount of acid reflux, ulcers that we have today and know that there are a lot of people who aren't able to process through their life experience. Life is happening so quickly that it's hard for them to process their life experience. We're not trained in our Western culture to stop, take the time, clear the stuff of the day. I mean, today was a rough day. It was a rough day for a lot of people today. It's just the way it is. Sometimes we have rough days. If we can't step back, the old nose to the grindstone thing, when you finally take your nose, and so mine would be a large nose to remove from the grindstone, you take that back and you can, oh wow, there's a room around here, when all you've done is notice the grindstone. What all of my work is about is clearing out the residual stuff so that what you're left with is your essence, who you are, to the greatest extent possible. Either through the healing work that I do, the healing work that I teach. I've got some processes, 90-minute processes I call connection processes, allows you to get really deeply connected with another person at soul level in 90 minutes. That's another thing we can talk about. But it's all about clearing the residual crud, if you will, that doesn't belong in you. It's not a part of you, but you think you have to do something with it or hold on to it, or stuff that you've not been able to let go of because it's just habitually always there. And we never release that. People with migraines, if you have enough stuff floating around in your head all day, it's possible you might end up with a migraine. Sounds kind of silly if you don't want to look at it that way, but it's amazing how much of that I've seen over the last 30 years. So what we're getting at is we are energetic beings who accumulate life experience, and how we process that life experience will over time result in a state of physical health that's spiritually based. We are spiritual beings occupying 3D. Greg Braden, I'll talk about him some more, wrote a book called The Divine Matrix. And the Matrix movie, I think, is based around that book, because the Matrix movie is all about this 3D holographic computer-generated image that people are existing in, but they grow up in it and they don't even realize they're even in it. It's just the way of the world. It's the way they are. It's the way it is. They don't even know that there's something else. But then they experience these people in the movie who can bend reality. They can jump, 100 yards between buildings and jump off the 50-story building and land on the street and be, yeah, okay, here we are, we're okay. I'm not there yet, but there are people who are. I can do some things with the help of Creator. Cancers have gone away and this sort of thing. The healing work I do every day looks like that. It looks like, how is that possible? But it becomes possible, as in the Matrix movie, when the characters in the Matrix movie who knew that they were just in a computer simulated, generated environment, were able to bend the rules because they knew that they could. Most of the work that we do in the work that I do, that I teach people, is knowing that you can. 3D is malleable because you know it is. When you know it is, interesting things happen. I'm a Christian. I'm not a dogmatic Christian. I don't require that anyone adhere to my belief system. But there was this guy, Jesus, 2,000 years ago that people are still talking about, who could supposedly walk on water. He did miraculous healings. I don't doubt that. The stuff I'm doing, I'm not claiming to be Jesus, but his whole point of existence was to come down here and let us know that 3D is an illusion and the rules can be bent. And we are souls that are, by forgiveness, love. I mean, he gave 2 commandments. Love God with all you got and love each other. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. But it starts loving yourself. You can't love your neighbor as you love yourself until you love yourself. Then you get to love your neighbor. But you can't love your neighbor with all your neighbor's stuff until you can love you with all your stuff. I gotta love me, then I got a shot at loving you, and then if we can love each other, then we can really see all of our stuff and realize how much the Creator must really love us to help us through our day with all of our crud. Again, I'm just going to keep going back to this intention, the power that's available to us to change 3D with our intention. The way that works, I think, is love. Love is the greatest power there is. When we lack love, just look at the world. The world is evidence of a huge, global, colossal lack of love. Some people say it's either love or fear. Well, love, fear. Which do you think the world is kind of leaning toward at the moment? I think we can save it. I think we can do something about it, but it's going to take a lot more love to overcome the fear. Because the only thing that can overcome the fear is love. People kill people out of fear. People go to war over fear. Fear of lack, fear of whatever, fear of differences. When people can realize that we're all the same, we're all part of the same thing, a lot of that stuff's going to disappear. The healing work I do, the processes I do on connection, are all about, they're all designed to clear out what needs to go away, put in what needs to come in. But what's really fun is, as I'm clearing out chakras, if I'm clearing out what I perceive in my mind's eye as darkness, immediately as the darkness leaves, things light up inside. I don't even usually have to put much in. Some people are depleted. I'll call sacred energy in and start to fill it up until I can literally feel it push back on my hands. It's like a balloon blowing up. I can feel it. Some folks need none, some folks need a little, some folks need a lot. But it's fascinating to know that as I'm pulling stuff out, I see light. It's like the sun's bright, but we have sunglasses on. Many pairs of sunglasses. And the more layers of sunglasses we peel off, the more light we see. It's not like the light wasn't there. The light was always there. And when we remove the darkness, what we're left with is the light that was always there. I'm going to make another Christian reference. Matthew chapter 5. Jesus talks about being poor in spirit. I didn't really get that for a long time. I thought, well, we're supposed to feel all poor and humble and downtrodden. No, poor people didn't carry anything. They didn't have anything back then. If you're poor, you don't have any baggage. You got no baggage. If Jesus was talking about being poor in spirit, I think he meant have your spirit be unencumbered with the stuff. You don't need to carry a lot of emotional, spiritual baggage. If you free that up, what you're left with is who you are. And your light will shine. And he says, don't let your light hide under a bushel basket. Take it out and let it shine. In that same grouping, he starts talking about being the salt of the earth. Salt, when properly implemented, salt makes any food taste more like what it already is. Put salt on steak, it tastes like steak. Put salt on vegetables, it tastes more like that vegetable. In the deep south where I grew up, people would put salt on watermelon. You put a little salt on watermelon, it tastes more like a watermelon. Salt of the earth means to shine your light, to be as you can be in the way that's most you, for someone else, which empowers them to be more of who they are. So when you're salt of the earth, what you're doing is empowering each and every person you meet to be most them. Not for me to tell you how I think you ought to be, but for me to support you in you determining who you are and who you're meant to be most you. That for me is the definition of salt of the earth. So again, the work I do is about clearing stuff away so that what remains is you, most you. Very healing. The coolest part about the healing is that you come to know yourself as you already always have been. So that, is there a more empowering thought you could have than to realize, oh, most me is right. Most me is who I'm meant to be. That's it. There's no place to go. There's no knowledge to get that you don't already have. There's nothing to learn that you didn't know. You just sort of already always know all of this stuff. What's in the way is what's preventing you from being most you. Now, this is going to kill the self-help industry, okay? The whole self-help industry is based around, I got something you don't have, you pay me $1 gazillion or read my next book or whatever, you're going to then have that piece, that missing piece of the puzzle that's going to make your life great. I don't think so. Just my opinion. It's going to kill a $1 trillion industry. But the best quote-unquote self-help guys are the guys who help you peel away the layers, and they are out there. We know who they are. The good ones are the good ones. They help you peel away the layers of what needs to go away so that what you're left with is who you are. That's the gift. That's the biggest gift there is to let someone know that who they are is all they need. We are, in and of ourselves, whole. And what there is to do is not to find missing pieces, but to take away the stuff that's in the way from us finding who we already are. In my connection processes that I teach, I pair people up, or threes, generally twos, but we can do it in threes, where I have people face each other and look into each other's eyes and come to know each other a little bit more closely. And then I walk them through a series of prompts where they fill in the blank, if you will, and take a look at their past, they look at their future, they get to look at their present, and in the filling in the blanks and speaking to the person in front of them that they're coming to get to know really quickly, really intimately, it becomes an almost automatic thing. And as we speak, we release. And in the speaking of that which needs to go away, that which I don't prefer, that which I wish I had but I don't, all of these things that are a part of our human experience, in the speaking is the release. We also talk about becoming the watcher of your thoughts. This is also a part of the deal. To access the sacred space in which I do the healing that I do, I have to go into that sacred space. But I'm not going to a place that I'm not. I'm going within to where I already can be and am. When I'm in that space, miracles, what looks like miracles, show up. So, when one wants to quiet one's mind activity, some people, you could do 30 years of meditation, or you could just notice the thoughts your brain is generating. So, for example, tell me something that. Well, we have a table here. I'm going to pick out a bottle of essential oil. Give me the data, just the data. No emotion, no, oh, that's a beautiful bottle, or oh, this smells wonderful. Just describe to me the bottle.
100% pure and natural lemon oil.
Got it. 100% pure natural lemon oil. It's got a label that's got some good information on it. Give me, what color is it?
The inside or the label?
The
itself?
label.
The label is an orangish yellow color.
Okay. And what color is the bottle?
The bottle is brown.
And how tall how tall would you say the bottle is?
Oh, a good 3 inches tall or so.
And what's the bottle made of?
It's made of glass and maybe
Okay.
an inch in diameter.
There you go. So that's the data.
Mm-hmm.
That's the basic information that we could use to describe this bottle of essential oils. What I ask people to do is to notice your thoughts like data.
Okay.
Like, I'll have the thought about my son, whom I love. He's 12 at the time of this, okay? He's 12. Got another son who's 23. I love both of my boys. I'm real proud of them. They're both brilliant. They're musical. They're sweet. They're sensitive. They're awesome. So I have my thought about my younger son is still growing up. He's just entering puberty. He's in middle school. I'm always concerned about what he has going on. I'm concerned about, is he fitting in, or his grades good, and is he studying for this? And if I notice my thoughts about my son, I begin to notice, here's the thoughts I have about my son. There's a thought about his grades, there's the thought about school, there's a thought about the school dance coming up in a couple of weeks, there's the thought about the drawing he did for I'll call his girlfriend, is the girl that he's really interested in school. All of these thoughts begin to accumulate or coagulate, if you will, around this thing called my son. I have this group of thoughts that I can actually notice and point to, kind of like in a Ziploc bag, and I'll call them a thought packet. There are thought packets about everything. So I have my older son thought packet, my younger son thought packet, my hope for romance thought packet, my job thought packet, my bank account thought packet, my healed by spirit thought packet. I work with a national group, international men's group called the Mankind Project. I'm very active in my role with the Mankind Project. Here's my Mankind Project thought packet. We've got all of these thought packets. The more you become aware of what your thoughts are, and you kind of hold them out here and take a look at them like data, it's amazing what starts to happen. If I, for example, start to look at my son, well, I wish I could have provided my son with a little bit more. I have a judgment, self-judgment about that. So I get to notice, oh, I have my son, I have the judgment, I love my son, I have the judgment, I'm not happy with myself sometimes because I wish I had provided my son with more. There's the thought about the thought, there's the judgment about the thought, then there's the self-judgment about the judgment about the thought, then I have another judgment about my self-judgment about the judgment about the thought about the thought. It's crazy. It's crazy making. It's also disease making sometimes. So what we can know is that as we have these thoughts that we are noticing, our brains are generating thought. We are not our brains. Our stomach digests food. Our lungs breathe. Our heart beats. It's going to happen until the day we die. If I hold my breath, what's going to happen? If I hold my breath long enough and stop my lungs from doing what they do, my lungs breathe, what's going to happen if I stop my breath long enough? If I hold my breath long enough, what's going to happen? It's not you pass out. And what happens when I pass out? I start breathing again because that's what my lungs do. Okay? So our brain is like that. It generates thought. That's what it does. The problem is we forget that our brain is just doing what it does. It generates thought. And because it's our brain, we think it must mean something. The more you can take your brain's thoughts, notice them, put them out here, what you may come to realize is that the you that is you, your essence, is what is noticing your brain thinking a thought. At that point, it begins to hit you. Oh, the Brian that is Brian can notice Brian's brain thinking a thought. I can point to it. The Brian that is Brian is beyond Brian's brain thinking a thought. I'll call it my soul. You could spend 30 years meditating, trying to access that place, or you can do this really counterintuitive thing, which is just to notice what your brain's thinking. The very act of noticing what your brain is doing defines that you are in that place that is outside of that can notice that. You don't have to do it right. You don't have to judge yourself about it. Am I doing it right? Am I doing it fast enough? Just the fact that you are noticing your thoughts defines the existence of that part of you which exists that can notice your brain thinking a thought. I call it your soul. Once you're there, everything else becomes possible. When I do my connection workshops, it's all about accessing that place where you're noticing what's coming up in your brain while you're interacting with another human being who's noticing what's going on in their brain while you're doing this interaction. And the next thing you know, the layers are peeled away and you're standing face to face with a fellow human being in their being. And you connect. And the part of you that connects with the part of them that there is to connect with is beyond ego, beyond judgment, beyond the self-crud that we carry around, beyond the judgment I have about you, beyond the judgment you have about me. We're just there with each other. And soul-level connection happens. There's nothing better. The coolest part about my workshops, my processes, is that I can teach you how to access that place and call that forth with not a lot of practice, like a day, an afternoon, and an evening of practice. People are calling me back the day after a 90-minute process and saying, my life has changed. My worst enemy is now a friend. I didn't even talk to her. She was the black witch, in our house, and now she came over and she knocked on my door just to say hi. We saw each other at the corner market and we were friendly. How could that be? We never had a conversation. It's the light we're radiating and calling down. I call it calling in the light. When you get it down, I can literally walk into Starbucks and transform the room in 30 seconds. People are engaged. I can just look around the room and watch conversation shift. I can watch the guy who's pensive. Suddenly he might put his hands into his head and get more deeply into thought. It's fascinating to watch. One of my students works at a bookstore. She calls in the light, and suddenly there's people picking up the books, and the kids are putting stuff back on the shelf, and the area is cleaner, and stuff's obviously different. And she's not talking to anybody. All she's doing is consciously, intentionally, with love, calling in the light. That's what's possible. We can change the world with that if we know we can. It's not about adhering to a belief system. It's just love. That's all there is. The power of love and the power of our intention shifts 3D. The expressway is a smoother drive. I work with people, their disease vanishes in an hour. People with multiple herniated discs on massive pain meds with no freedom of movement and living in constant pain, gone in an hour. That's not possible unless what I'm talking about exists, and that's what I do for a living. I'm not some miracle worker. I'm employing a technology that's readily available for anyone who wants to learn. And your job is to go, okay, I'm in, let's try that. And at the end of a weekend intensive healing class, Friday night 3 hours, Saturday morning 3 hours, then Saturday morning is about this sacred space and generating the space. Then you go out into the world for the rest of Saturday and call in the light on everybody and everything that moves and watch your reality change. And then come back on Sunday afternoon for 5 hours where I actually teach the healing techniques I do, the visualizations, the graphics that I teach people to employ. And every single person who's ever done my class, I'm up to number 14 now. I've graduated 14 classes of people since January of 13. Everyone gets it. We play a game on Sunday afternoon after we've really gotten it, and we have everyone write down on a piece of paper what their ailment is. Like, oh, my lower back's a little sore, my right knee's feeling something, you know, I broke my toe last week and it's a little, whatever someone has that they can write down. They put it on a piece of paper, they put it in their pocket, and then the other students scan, determine what's going on, clear it, tell us what they found, and the person pulls out the paper and says, yep, that's what I have. That's what's available in a weekend class. I think that's pretty cool. The connection process, 90 minutes for the rest of your life. It's all about accessing that space. All of this comes down to love, intention, the power of our thoughts, not just thoughts, but the feelings, the emotions, the stuff that is our soul. When we access that, what becomes available looks like a miracle. It's just an explanation. The difference between miracle and technology is an explanation. There are people throughout history, Edgar Cayce, Jesus. I mean, there have been people for millennia. Buddha, you know. There's a guy named, oh gosh, what's his name? He's the guy who studies myth, Joseph Campbell. Joseph Campbell did this book where he talks about 20-some cultures that have the identical story to the Jesus story. It's fascinating to me, all these cultures that have all these parallels. And some, I grew up in South Louisiana, it's a real strong Catholic community, and I'm in Texas now where there's a pretty strong Christian community, and some folks are very offended by the possibility that there would be more than one Jesus. How could there possibly be? There's only one Jesus, only one Savior, only one way. And I'm thinking to myself, that may be. They may be right. But it begs the question for me, if an all-knowing, all-loving God wanted to make sure that everyone got the message of love, and those were Jesus' only 2 commandments, and he said the second one's the same as the first one. Love, 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 love. Everything is love. Wouldn't an all-knowing, all-loving God who loves his children, which we are of his stuff, the energy that makes us up is part of that, wouldn't he want us to know? Wouldn't he repeat the message, repeat the whole scenario as many times as possible, in as many different parts of the globe, over as many millennia as possible? I think so. I'm not saying I'm right, but it feels right to me that that might be possible. So here I am, just another guy. I mean, I'm just another guy, okay? I'm not some saint or special human being. Anyone who's watching this video who knows me is like, yes, for sure, he's no perfect guy. I can tell you for sure he's no perfect guy. I'm just a guy. But I do love people to the greatest extent I can. I have my stuff, but I'm working on it. I'm a work in progress. Thank God I'm still a work in progress. I'm still breathing, I'm still here. Therefore, I must be valid, as are you who are here. If you're here, if you're breathing, you're valid. I'm learning to love everybody. Learning, I haven't learned it yet. I still get, a little bit political, I still get kind of economic in my viewpoint, and I can start to go, ooh, I don't know if I like that guy. Well, guess what? That's not doing him any good, it's not doing me any good. It's really not doing anyone any good. Much better if I just love everybody. Even if I can't like them, I can still love them, and eventually I'll like them. Hopefully. That's my goal. What all of this talk is about is loving everybody, bringing intention, bringing your love, because the power of love is what does the healing. It's when we're coming from that place that Spirit can come in and guide us and tell us what needs to happen, what needs to come up, to see a visualization or say a prayer or whatever it is that makes the difference in another person's life in that moment. That's what this is all about. So we're going to do a little exercise if you guys are up for it, okay? Face each other. And this is our little experiential moment. I've talked enough. And what I want you to do, if you're comfortable with it, is just look into each other's eyes.
Okay.
This is not going to come off really great on film because there's going to be pauses here.
Mm-hmm.
But just look into each other's eyes for a moment. And notice what comes up. Notice what your brain is thinking. And let that go. Oh, and let that go too. And you can let that next thing go too. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath and exhale. And do it again, and notice you're inhaling when you're inhaling and you're exhaling when you're exhaling. Just notice your breath. Keep noticing your breath. One more deep breath and exhale. Now open your eyes. Are we more connected than we were a minute ago?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Now imagine doing that for an hour and a half with a whole bunch of other exercises that we do to facilitate the peeling away of the layers and the quieting of your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And after 90 minutes of that, the whole room is lit up.
Yeah.
It's so fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's the best thing there is. When we're connected at that level, and all the layers of the onion are gone, and all the sunglass layers are gone, and what's left is the sun that's in you, magic happens.
Yeah.
Your blood pressure drops, your heart rate smooths out. It's our natural state. But we're not trained to be there. And getting there means we got to go through some big, long, whatever process. The medical community would have us believe we got to do all this stuff. Even some of the Eastern community says, oh, we got to do all these herbs and all this stuff. We got. Ultimately, there's a group of people that you can look up. They're all over the world. There's some folks in Germany. There's a community in the UK that eat almost nothing. Have a little tea every now and then, drink a little water. They don't even consume food. The very nature of consuming food is like it's a part of what it takes for me to live. I'm not there yet. But there are people who don't eat food. They get whatever they need from the light or air. I don't know, it's beyond me. But there are people who do it. There are Tai Chi masters, there are Eastern mystics who can jump 10 feet up in the air onto a building, the old ninja stuff. And you know, there are guys who can walk through walls and walk on walls and just all this bizarre stuff that makes absolutely no sense. But they've gotten to where they can bend 3D. 3D becomes malleable for them. I can't walk on water yet. I haven't practiced lately either, but I haven't really tried to walk on water. But I do what amounts to what looks like miracles every day. And I want you to know that that's available to you. You want to connect at the level times 30 of what just happened? That's available in 90 minutes. And the coolest part about it is, once you've gone through that 90-minute process of release and learning this technique I call calling in the light, you can call in the light in the time it takes you to inhale and exhale. Literally. With 1 day of practice, you can learn how to call in the light and alter 3D. You can literally alter the mood of the room you're in. I literally can smooth out traffic on the expressway. Imagine if that's possible. What happens to relationships? What happens to sales calls? Okay? This is not manipulation. This is about opening up your heart to another person such that they show up in your space.